Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Mixed Extents. I'll be your host today. My name is Mark Wilkinson. With me as always is Andrew Pruski and Anthony Nocentino. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Mark,
Excellent.
how you doing?
We've actually already been chatting for a few minutes, but we decided we should probably hit record and get on with it. So here we are. Today, we're going to be talking about the DBA, the role of the DBA, skills that we think a DBA should have, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Now, I also want to, before we start talking about this, if at any point you're thinking, oh no, they're going to be talking about, oh, the DBA road is dead. I've been hearing that for like 10 years. So no, we're not,
Right.
we're not doing that.
No, we'll never say that. But I wanted to start this conversation first by kind of getting everybody's story, how they got where they're at right now, and then we'll get into it and talk about what we think DBAs should be doing now. So since I'm the host, I'll just choose someone other than me to start it off. So go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, me first. Oh,
Yeah.
Anthony was sitting there going, but I want to talk. I want to talk. Well, I started off in Devon County Council writing reports, which explains my absolute hatred for every single reporting technology that's out there these days. So I was writing reports, and it was all Crystal reports with an Oracle database backend with a few SQL instances. And I started writing everything, writing SQL queries, and then it was just like, if I write this SQL query this way, it's quicker than if I write this SQL query that way, which got me into all, okay, they're starting to delve a little bit deeper into like database structures, indexing, non-sargable queries, and things like that. And I just started applying for DBA roles, and I was woefully underqualified for loads of them. I remember going to one job where they stuck a load of questions in front of me. I just thought, I have no idea what any of this is at all. But eventually I went and got an interview as it was going to be a junior DBA, although they never said junior DBA. They just said the SQL DBA, but we don't have any DBAs at the moment. It's just Oracle people who are working with SQL Server, and they don't want to do SQL Server anymore. So we need a SQL Server DBA. And I did the interview, thought it went terribly, but I got the job. And I turned up on my first day and I was like, oh, hey, everyone, how's it going? Where are the other SQL Server DBAs? And my boss went, yeah. We'll send you on a training course in about a week. And I was like, great. And just to clarify how little I knew, my training course was, okay, this is how you back up a database. This is a full backup, a differential backup, and a log backup. These are maintenance plans. You use these for your maintenance. That was where I was at when I started my first job. So yeah, and then just going through it, then you start reading and checking out different things online, and you build your knowledge from there. And yeah, and now I'm working over in Ireland, remote DBA, working with Mark as my wonderful boss. Still use maintenance plans though. Love the maintenance plans.
So that's funny that you started out. I didn't realize that you started out with reporting, because that's the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Would that have changed anything in your relationship, Mark?
It might have. I don't know. I hired him. No, it wasn't my choice to hire him at that point.
I bet mine was worse than yours. Mine was Crystal reports on top of Oracle.
Yeah, mine was SSRS. So yeah,
don't know if that's worse or not.
Yeah,
actually.
I don't know. So what about you, Anthony?
It's a long story. So let's see. So
my
initial
around
jobs,
the fire,
right?
Uncle Anthony's talking.
So I was born.
No. Well, no, I don't even want to go there. So my very first job was PC tech. That didn't work out so great because I realized, well, I don't like interfacing with people, right? I mean, it's not a core skill that I have. And then I moved into working on networks and servers and things like that because I can just like sit in a network closet and fix things. That's kind of cool. And so that was kind of a core focus of my career for a couple of years, making like the green lights blink inside of data centers, right?
Yellow cable goes into the yellow hole.
Yeah, exactly. Routing and switching, all that stuff to be more precise. Cisco, yada yada. Then I kind of moved up the stack a little bit, focused on applications, did things like Citrix and web server scale out stuff. And then I left that company to go to graduate school to work on a PhD in computer science, but I still had to work full time because I was older. I was like 25, 26 at the time. So I had like a career to like hold on to. So then a buddy of mine calls me. He's like, hey, my developer just quit and I need somebody to write some code for this project. I'm like, sounds cool. I'll do it as a contract, right? Just, 2 or 3 months, no big deal. And so I was actually at a bar. I call him back and I'm like, hey, why don't you just hire me? and he hired me as the senior developer for that team and eventually IT architect. But underneath that umbrella of all the things that I was responsible for was a bunch of SQL servers, right? And so I got to learn about similar to what you described, Andrew. It was like someone had a report running, and every day at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the CPU would peg and the disks would go nuts back when they used to spin. And I was like, what's that all about? And someone was running a crystal report that was pulling all charges ever in the organization, which is like back to like 1997, and then sorting them by first name. And I was like, we could do better. Right. And so that was kind of like my first dive into making code work and becoming the accidental DBA. Then the story goes on a lot longer. We can go into like how I got into consulting. We might want to shelf that. But now I'm at SQL Server. I did consulting for the last 10 years. And about 4 months ago, it's all our Genesis and Marsha's fault. I now work at Pure, right? And kind of leveraging, but the interesting part is leveraging all of those skills because I can have meaningful conversations with networking people, with application developers, with architects, and that whole stack isn't foreign to me to be able to have a strong conversation around. And so that's, I think the three of us are kind of in that same bucket in that from a skill standpoint, I kind of put DBAs into two buckets, systems DBAs and like developer DBAs. And I feel like the three of us are probably systems DBAs. We're good at like designing HA, making sure backups run, making sure perf's good, more so than going into code and tuning code and things like that. So like, what do you guys think about that as kind of a line of demarcation between DBA types?
I heard a great quote from the senior DBA I used to work with, and it was, "You are the DBA the company wants, or the company makes you." So if you get hired as a DBA, you get, and then you turn up and there's no developers, then you might be pushed in. Say there's no developers, there's a load of sysadmins, you might get pushed more into the development side of things. There's sort of a mixture. And there's a big team, then you could go into specialized roles. I've always ended up on the system side of things, like building the servers and configuring HA, make sure the backups are there, DR processes, things like that, and a bit of tuning as well. I wouldn't say it's my strongest thing. I do like doing it. It's just it depends. I don't like getting. Have you ever gone in to see, what's going on here, and then you have 15 nested stored procedures down going, I hate everything. I hate everything. I hate everything.
So
that was the hardest part. That was the hardest part about consulting is you have a perf problem like that, and you just like. Yeah. You're like, oh, no, this isn't going to be, oh my goodness, what's going on there, right?
Well, sometimes it's important to understand the history of how they got there, and that's not always well documented, but it's important to know, especially when you get into something really hairy. But
well, then, Mark, we haven't your story then, man.
Yeah. And my story ties in nicely with the things we just said. So I also started out as a report writer, and that. Maybe Andrew will agree with me. I get really frustrated when things don't run how I think they should, and then I go looking for alternate solutions. That's kind of how I operate. So we were using I don't like that. I'm going to build it myself. That's how I run. But
that's still how you roll, right?
Yeah, it is. It is totally.
Raise your hand if you wrote your own blog platform. We're on video. Raise your hand.
Just raise my hand. But but I was working at a real estate company, and we used this management software called MRI, and it has this really horrendous reporting tool built in, and it used a SQL backend and this terrible reporting tool. We paid an outside company to do our reporting because the report tool was so terrible. But I realized one day that, hey, SQL has a reporting tool built in. What does this look like? Oh, this isn't that hard to use. And we can actually do it in-house. So I started doing all of our like lease documents, which actually allowed us to do all kinds of stuff like multi-language leases and stuff that were just not supported in the management platform. So that's how I got started. And as Andrew said, hey, this query is running a lot slower than this one. Why is that? I did happen to work for someone that at the time that had a pretty deep SQL knowledge. This was with SQL 2005, I think, and he's kind of the person that got me interested in it and get interested in the performance side of it and really digging in there. And then from there, the DBA left that company, so I got a little more involved in the database stuff. And then that kind of happened at every company I'd been at after that, where I would start doing like reports or something like that. Someone would leave, I would start diving into performance issues, and I would kind of own the database. So that takes us all the way up until the job I had just before my current one, where I work with Andrew. Where that's the job before this is the one where I really dug into things. That's where I started taking like Pluralsight courses and things like that to really get deep into performance, because the specific application that I worked on, we maintained this. I think it was a pair of 10,000 line stored procedures that ran
Nice.
with every UI event, because it was a cargo company. They did air freight, and anytime somebody moved a pilot to a new flight or tried to reschedule a flight, they had to run this procedure for all the pilots on the flight. So this thing was just always constantly running, and it didn't perform well. It was 10,000 lines long. It was a mess. So by the time I left, we'd got it down to, I think, 2,000 lines. It ran a lot faster, and I was kind of hooked on the performance tuning part of it at that point. So your point earlier about the systems and the developer DBA, I think I kind of straddled the line. I'm slowly losing the development side of things as I get more systems focused in my current role. I can certainly tell you why your query is running slow still, even just by looking at the code, but I have a harder time telling you how to make it better. I seem to be losing that skill a little bit. But that could also be saying good things about our database developers that we currently have.
Yeah. Update the stats and go home, mate. Update stats, go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we covered that on an episode early on.
But yeah, so that's my current role. I work with Andrew at a much larger company than I've ever worked at before, as far as data volume and everything goes, and do a ton of work with automation, and just trying to squeeze every last ounce of performance that we can out of the servers.
Have you guys ever had any really bad jobs? Like, I had one. I had one that was so bad it made me leave the country. So,
my previous job was not the best job. I learned a lot, but the people environment was pretty horrendous. Glad to be out of there.
I've been really fortunate. Other than that first desktop job, which just wasn't for me, like the position wasn't for me. I've been super lucky of working in good organizations, and then also being self-employed for 10 years like that. It was pretty awesome. So I've been really, really fortunate around that space.
Yeah, I think between the three of us, we've got hopefully some interesting perspectives on this. I like to think that Andrew and I kind of live in a bubble with our current environment, because it's unlike most environments. Whereas Anthony maybe gets to see a little bit more of what everyone else is dealing with.
You want to know what everyone else says? My environment's special. That's what they all say.
We've been told by Microsoft that our environment's special.
Yeah. As in, your environment's very special.
Yeah.
Go away.
Maybe I misunderstood what they were saying.
Stop doing that.
We'll put it. We'll put your bug request
right
on the fridge. There it is.
But all right, so that's us. So let's start talking about the role of DBA. So, got a kickoff question as always. Do you all think the role of the DBA has changed much, or does it more just depend on where you work?
As I said earlier, it's as my previous senior DBA said to me, it's like you kind of tend to become the DBA that your company wants. I mean, you see database administrator roles, advertised, and they all kind of look generic, the same. I mean, the thing that flashes warning signs for me when I see administration of SSRS, SSAS on a DBA job spec, you're like, because this might be me being a real cynical person. But
really?
if reporting is mentioned on a DBA role, 90% of what you're going to be doing is looking after reports. That's just the way I tend to think about it. So I don't know. It does definitely depend on where you work.
Yeah.
But as to has it changed? Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, because we're not doing things that DBAs 15 years ago were doing. I'm not working with 2000 going, ooh, was it DBCC pin table? Let's do that.
Did you rotate the tapes?
Yeah. So the technology advanced. Who was talking to about this? I had this question before a while ago, and it was, the automation stuff that's coming into Azure. And things like automatic plan regression correction, and I think they have automatic indexing now in Azure SQL DB. I
Yeah.
can't remember. They do, don't they? I'm saying there's this data getting rid of the roles and responsibilities of a DBA, and I was thinking, no, it's not getting rid of that. It's getting rid of the boring stuff. It's freeing that up for us to actually, have a look at doing some really cool things, And so I'm trying to say, it's not, the role is changing, but I think the automation that's coming in is making our role more interesting. You don't have to do this heavy slogging anymore. Automatic plan regression correction is amazing. Switch that on as soon as you get it.
It is, yeah. No, that's a very impressive feature. I was kind of shocked at how much it bought us.
What version did that come out in?
This quiz
Oh,
time?
I'm going to say 2017.
Okay. Yeah, I think 17. Yeah. So, but in the end, like I make this joke when I talk about building HA systems. Like nobody cares if SQL Server's online. They care if they can get to the data, right? And in the end, that's really what our job is cultivating access to the data and keeping it secure and making sure it's backed up and all of those things. The implementation details are just the implementation details. Whether if I'm running an Azure CLI script or if I have to run PowerShell on-prem, whatever. It's
Yeah.
that's
Okay, so argument time. What's the
Sure.
primary responsibility of a DBA? Primary.
protect the data.
Yes, there we go. Okay, because you said, can they access the data? I don't care if they can't access the data. Is it protected? Can I restore?
No, I
it?
said what I said is you can't
Yeah.
access SQL Server. No one cares if SQL Server's online. They care if they can get to the
Oh,
data.
you pedantic. Yeah, all right.
Look who's talking. Really? Are we really going to do that?
Oh, I'm just in my glass house chucking stones.
Kind of to your point too, though, Andrew. And when you were talking about the automatic plan regression correction, I find that it seems like as time goes on and the new versions come out and the new features come out, they address some small dumb thing that you can't really do anything about, and it frees up your time to do things you can actually have impact, like doing. So, like the plan regression correction. What are you going to do? You're going to force a plan. Well, now SQL does that for you. What were you going to do before that? You were going to use plan guides. Well, now SQL kind of does that for you, so you don't have to do that. So those situations where before there was really only one solution, and some of the solutions were kind of a pain in the butt, like plan guides. Now that stuff's mostly taken care of for us, or we've got a simple one-button solution, like to force a plan.
You want to know why? You know why, right?
Because Microsoft had to start managing their own servers in Azure.
Bingo. Like, man,
thinking to
if
themselves,
I can
"Oh,
get
this
these
is
CPU
terrible."
cycles under control, I can sell those CPU cycles to somebody else, right?
Yeah, that. I was
Yeah.
thinking more of the scaling, the team size that they had to manage these huge
Yeah.
multi-tenant instances.
I'd love to go and play with the automatic indexing in Azure SQL DB because I wonder if it's any better than DTA.
It scares the crap out of me, honestly. Like when you see the index recommendations that are made,
It must be better.
I know it
Must
has to be better, but
It's got ML. It's got to be better.
oh boy, case statements, you mean? But no,
Oh God, we're all so cynical.
I know we are. I
Thanks for
think that's
tuning
one
in.
of the
You're going
core
to be really
skills of a
miserable by
DBA.
the time you finish listening to this.
No, I would. Now that we're already here and talking about it, I would be interested to get the perspective on a new DBA, someone that's fairly fresh to the job. Is automatic indexing, is that exciting to somebody that's brand new? Whereas to us, all we can see is the possible issues it's going to cause because of some terrible experiences in the past.
So, what do you think a DBA? Before they have no technical skills with SQL Server and so on, what type of skills do you think someone needs to become a DBA?
This is
So I can
Crickets.
crickets. I'd say an almost, I don't know. This is going to be so cringy, Andrew. But it's a methodical nature. So I've seen people who go and will release something to production and go, yeah, that's released, great. We're going to verify that, are we? Oh no, okay, right, bye. When I was writing reports, I was doing some data modifications. I had a boss who was very just like, oh, you've written an update script to update all those tables. Like, okay, and I'd run it and he'd be brilliant. I'd put the data back. And I was like, okay, so you got me into this habit of writing update scripts and having a rollback script immediately there. And I still do that today. Like if I'm making if I'm running anything production, I immediately can roll back what I'm doing. And it's that type of thing. Okay, so what I'm saying is have a methodical nature and approaching, say, production changes, so that if something, God forbid, does go wrong, you can put it back immediately. Because we've all seen people, we've deployed something and they're all scrabbling around going, how do we fix this? How do we fix that? And I'm not doing a point in time restore on a 1 terabyte database because someone's made an update to one table somewhere. I'm not going to do that.
It's funny that's the thing you mentioned.
Cool.
The being methodical, because I really think it's reflected in your story. The fact that you were the only DBA. I've never had the experience of never being the only DBA. I've always had at least someone to bounce ideas off, and I feel like I'm more likely to kind of YOLO something into production than Andrew is.
I can't believe you just said YOLO. All right, yeah.
As a verb, even. But
Yeah.
I feel I'm a
YOLO-ing.
lot more likely to toss something into production that I'm not quite sure about than Andrew is, and I can't help but think that's because I've never been the sole person responsible for the system.
I think I was 3 DBA jobs in before I actually worked with another DBA.
And I think it's important. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about Andrew, actually, is that he will hold us back a bit, because I'm usually pretty gung-ho about getting stuff into production. And it's great to have a kind of a balanced team of people with different opinions on how quickly you should be getting something into production.
Basically, I'm on the team who's going, no, no, no. No, we're not doing that.
So what you do is you just keep building facts until the no turns into a yes. That's how it works.
But what about you chaps then? Go on. What's the skill set you'd look for?
I got a manager answer. It's like a something you'd find in like an HR slide. But
I know it's good, isn't it? Look at you, both of you squirming.
Tenacity.
No, well, kind of. I really do think for a DBA position, curiosity is really important. That
We all said it in our stories. We had
Yeah.
this thing and we wanted to make this thing better, what that thing was. And I think that's a core skill, right? The
Yeah.
desire for discovery and learn. So,
And I'm not one of those people that think that you need to be like, you don't have to be spending every waking hour reading about SQL Server and digging into performance issues on the weekend, but just enough of that kind of like, why is this happening, to get you to the point where you've improved something.
A definite, yeah, I agree with that. With a definite sort of how does this work?
Yeah, I don't like to throw around the word passion and stuff because people have got enough stuff going on in their lives. They don't need to be doing work outside of hours.
but does it work when you're having fun?
If you're neglecting your family, it is. But
so I wake up really early so that they have me the rest of the day.
No, that's good. But yeah, no, I think that's one of the top things, because I think a lot of the DBA skills can be taught.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have some sort of interest, or just that kind of,
He's trying his best not to say passion. Look at him.
I know. Well, yeah, because I try not to use that word because I think it's got some bad connotations, especially in the tech industry.
I agree with you completely. I don't want someone who's going to be. I mean, it's good, but going to conferences every weekend, go to UGs on in the evenings, reading constant books about SQL Server. Maybe go to one a month. Yeah, all right, fine, that's cool. Go to the local UG, absolutely. But you don't need to be spending all your waking time, because if you spend all your waking time doing this stuff, all that's going to happen is you're going to burn out hard and fast.
Yeah. Who's burned out? I've burned out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I certainly have. I'm kind of on a burnout roller coaster. Because I'll dive too deep into something and then just can't look at anything for a while. So, what about you?
Yeah, I feel that way. Yeah, I feel that way of a couple of things I've been looking at today. Every now and again, I never want to see another Python script as long as I live.
Ooh.
Mark loves Python. I hate.
I do love Python.
So would that be on your list of skills that a DBA needs to not know? Is Python?
DBA can get away without knowing Python. Oh, but version 2 or version 3, because stuff doesn't work in, and stuff doesn't work in version 2, it does work in version 3, but somehow weirdly both are still supported.
Always version 3. But this is a constant argument between the two of us.
Every time I use Python, I run into some sort of version weirdness, and it just
And every
It's
time I'm
almost-
like, are you using version 2 or version 3? And then he gets
What if there was a technology that could help you like decouple version from runtime? Like something like that contains something. I've read a blog series by a person that wrote a lot about
Yes.
containers.
Oh yeah.
If I started going around installing Docker and all our production servers, I think I'd be drop kicked out the door fairly quickly.
It's where someone comes flying into the comments. What about container D? Right. Oh,
Anyway, sorry, I derailed that with my hatred of Python.
That's fine. That's fine.
it's okay.
It's
This
just
is the
chat.
valuable content our listeners came here for.
Do you have anything else to add, Anthony? I feel like
For
we're
skills?
talking about kind of soft skills
Yeah.
right now, but
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you have that whole soft skills are important. You have that whole. I don't know. I don't think it's the case anymore. But there used to be like the stereotypical, tech nerdy guy who sat there in a dark room typing away on his 300 euro mechanical keyboard, who couldn't, who had absolutely no social skills. I really think that stereotype is gone now, which is great, because you don't want to work with that person. They'll be awful.
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know, maybe this is just the culture now with another one of Andrew's favorite things, with DevOps being thrown around a lot. But I do feel it's an asset for a DBA if they are good at working with other teams, communicating with other
Mhm.
teams, getting away from that stereotype of the DBA being the team that always says, the DBA team is always the team that says no.
Don't bother asking. Yeah.
Yeah, and more getting to the place where you're listening to what the other teams need and trying to figure out how you can get them what they need without destroying the servers. Because if you just say no, they're gonna find a way to get what they need anyways. Except you'll
Right.
have a lot less input over what that method is.
So in consulting, I'd go into orgs that generally needed stuff fixed.
Did you
Right.
used to be a consultant? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now I just talk about computers. Anywho, the moral of the story is that go into organizations that needed something to be fixed. And the most common thing that I had to fix wasn't a technical barrier. It was a siloed org where people weren't communicating with each other. And that was the number one thing I had to break down, because I had to get teams together to solve problems, to do stuff, right? Because yeah, you can roll out a SQL server, but you need a VMware admin, you need a storage admin, you need probably a security administrator, and in big siloed orgs, those people don't talk. And in fact, that there can also be what's the word I'm looking for, like the animosity between the teams. And so that was the number one thing I had my number one skill as a consultant. The second thing as a consultant that helped me be successful was automation, because I never wanted to hire people to work for my company. That's me and my craziness about finances and things like that. Not that I wanted to but I always kept my company as the size of one. And so the only way I could scale as an individual was to learn how to write code to do stuff, right? And then write that code to be repeatable so that I could use that to either scale up and do more things, or scale out so I can use those solutions across multiple customers, right? And that, I think those two skills, and one of them is a technical skill, one of them is not a technical skill, but I think those are the two core things that made me successful as a data professional.
And I feel like those skills translate really well to non-consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
maybe such
absolutely.
that people that are not consultants should just act like they are when they're at work. To a point.
Did you used to be a consultant, really? Snarky face.
What about actual technical skills? Like if you were writing up a job posting right now, like what do you think the like kind of table stakes are for a DBA now?
You wouldn't want them to come in absolutely blind. I mean, okay, so pot kettle black here, because I was very inexperienced with SQL Server when I started off being a DBA. You had basic computer skills. You need to understand, basic network infrastructure, storage, things like that. So you have a platform that you can build on, and you'll get that through. You could have someone straight out of uni who'd who have those skills from a computer science course and get tips from that. And then you can bring them through, over here, like graduate programs, things like that. Or if you've got someone who is transitioning from, I don't know, a reporting role where they've been writing reports for God knows how long, and they're coming into, I mean, looking back on it now, they were mad to hire me, but still, I'm really glad they did.
I've actually done that to bosses. I've gone back, I'm like, why did you actually hire me?
Yeah.
Like years later. I mean,
did that
the answers that you get are interesting.
I did that for this job that I have right now. Because I did not have a lot of experience. But the things that stood out.
You have a knowledge platform there you can build on. You're not coming in completely blind. So
yeah. The thing that sold it was that I had experience speaking in the community. It was like 2 months before I applied for the job, but I had some experience speaking in the community, and I want to say it started blogging at that point as well. So there's at least a track record of me probably being curious and wanting to know how stuff worked. But what about
I want to throw it out there that I don't think having a blog or a GitHub repo or anything like that is necessary for becoming a DBA or anything like that. People have that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But I've worked with people who are just like, I'm coming in, I'm going to go and do my job, and I'm going to go home and drink G&Ts, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
I mean, having a blog is great, but you feel like I used to write one post. I used to write one post a month, so I ramped it up a little bit, and then I'm back. I try and do one post a month because it's all about that burnout again.
Mm-hmm.
If you work a full day and you've got yourself writing one blog post a week, it takes time, because if you're writing technical blogs, you've got to get the code. You've got to find something you want to talk about. You've got to test it. You've got to get all the code into your blog. Then you've got to write the blog around it, and it'll take a few hours. And if you're doing that in evenings, if you're doing one of those a week, welcome to Burnout City.
Yeah, and obsessively validating that you're not writing stuff down that's wrong.
Yeah, there's that.
Oh yes, constantly going back and checking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, done that a few times.
What about you, Anthony? What are you thinking for technical skills?
Technical skills? Kind of what Andrew described is how I think, like of myself specifically, is having that good foundational knowledge and then building on top of that.
Yeah.
So I think obviously troubleshooting, that tenacity for learning and discovery is huge. When it comes
that's
to
a really good point with the tenacity and troubleshooting. Actually wanting to go and
breaking down problems into simpler problems and solving those is huge. But I think specifically for tech, I've always been a big fan of zoom in on particular technology, operating systems, right, and controlling access to resources. And I think that's why the three of us are good systems DBAs, because we understand that flow from CPU to RAM, right? And that's pretty much all a relational database engine does, is facilitates access to CPU disk RAM, right? And so now cloud, but that's just someone else's CPU disk RAM. But yeah, those are the big ones. Operating systems was a big foundational element for me going forward. And then I think looking forward is all cloud and hybrid cloud. And I'm not talking about like banging out an Azure SQL database, but figuring out where the best architecture is for the data that you have to cultivate, right? And that's where, like, just in working with customers now, is that I spend most of my time is helping people figure out where the best platform is for the things that they're trying to do, right?
I can imagine that takes most of your time. If you look at the options that are now available in Azure and AWS, it's unreal. You just sit there going, okay, Azure Data Lake, Azure's managed instances, Azure SQL DB.
Well, I spend a lot of time in AWS just doing random stuff at work, and every time I expand that like services tab,
yeah,
it just gets bigger and bigger. No idea what's in there anymore.
My only gripe with AWS, as opposed to Azure, is Azure's got when they name their things, they name the thing that it actually is. Whereas with AWS, you go Farscape. Okay.
Isn't that a show?
Yeah. Australian sci-fi here. Okay.
So I'm of the same opinion, but as I don't know, like to think that if I were hiring a new DBA at the current place that I'm at right now, so I'm starting to think that this question kind of depends on the size of the org that you're hiring for. But I don't know. I don't know that I would hire somebody that doesn't have some sort of scripting or some sort of skill where I know that they can look outside of T-SQL for the solution. And I can only assume that's because of the complexity of the environment that I'm in right now.
Everyone's environment special.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
No, I'm going to agree with Mark there. I think once you get beyond a certain size of environment, then having some automation through scripting is going to be essential. How would you, if you didn't have it, how would you prove that you could do? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I see a lot of job postings are the list of variety of scripting style languages. It's like Bash / PowerShell / Python, etc.
I wouldn't say it's a multiple. I'd say if they had a basic PowerShell, then you could build from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bash. Oh. I know I can write scripts in Bash. They're never any good, but I can write scripts in Bash.
Yeah, but I mean, I think and maybe this is me, but I don't like when I see solutions that are 100% written in T-SQL when I know that it would be 1,000 times easier to write it in something else. But it was written in T-SQL because that's the skill set that existed when this thing was created.
That's what motivated me to learn PowerShell initially, was having to do a looping task inside of T-SQL. I'm like, there has got to be a better way.
Right? Yeah, same here. PowerShell, though, when I first learned PowerShell, it used to drive me mad. Absolutely drive me mad. Every time I was like, what does the $sign mean? What's $sign underscore? Try Googling that and going, what?
Yes, I remember trying to Google the $sign underscore when I first started. That was that was interesting.
Is that a backtick on my screen or just a piece of dust?
Wait, no, that doesn't. What? Huh? No. Yeah. No, that was my when I first started out with PowerShell. When I first started really writing PowerShell, it was like really going a bar like really basic scripts. I started writing like a module functions to work with spinning up SQL containers and deploying databases to them and things like that. I was working with an architect a couple of jobs ago, and I was in a meeting and I got a direct message on my phone, and I asked him to review some of my scripts. Just said at the top, Pete, and it just said, whoever's teaching you PowerShell is very, very bad. Just Pete.
But you're looking at them, right?
So what would be your advice then for somebody that's just starting out, trying to get that next job, like in the position you were in, Andrew, where your resume didn't really look like a DBA resume, but you were going for that DBA job?
I would 100% focus on the real core basic aspects of being a DBA, which, let's go for it. My first one would be backups and restores. If you can nail backup and restores for me, then okay, great.
Now, by that, do you mean like understanding like log chain and all that stuff, or like the actual or just like best practices for like
being able to restore a database?
I'd say describe it. So if I need to describe how to do a point in time restore, describe the differences between the backup, between the different types of backups, and then talk about different, and then maybe just high level stuff. So just talking about what's the difference between a high availability and disaster recovery, and giving a couple of options for it. I'm not going to sit them down and write, or I'm not going to give them a whiteboard and go design me a solution. But if they can talk about that, and then things like, how would you check for, say, a slow running query? If you saw a lot of blocking, where would be the first thing to go for on the server? Just things like that. I'm not going to, not stupidly technical. I mean, one of the questions, stuff like what is capacity planning? I still maintain I got that question right in my interview, but still. She said I was talking. The interview was shaking her head, and I was like, "Oh, did I get that wrong?" She was like,
What was the answer that you were looking for?
Yeah. I don't want any gotcha questions. Stuff like, describe what I mean, a good one would be, but this isn't a gotcha question, but a good question is what would be describe the uses for TempDB. What's TempDB used for on a SQL Server? And if they can talk about that, then you've got some understanding of some, there's a glimmer of internal that's happening within SQL Server there. So questions that the basics, and then that you can build on them. You can go into further detail and see how far the knowledge goes, and then you can make a decision on that. Then instead of just asking, what's operating system error 995 mean? And they go, I don't bloody know.
I'm gonna Google that.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Anthony? Any advice you would give to someone that wants to get into the industry?
Advice: don't. No.
Oh, man.
Oh God.
No,
Getting dark out.
I love my job, and like I said earlier, I didn't have any bad jobs, so it's just a joke. I'm just saying that'd be funny.
Marsha, did you hear that? It's a joke. It's a joke.
Anywho, I think for any folks getting started, figure out where you want to invest your time. Focus on the things that interest you and excite you. Right? That's because I mean, this not to knock on you, Andrew, but maybe I don't want to learn about backups. Maybe I want to learn about performance tuning. Right? Maybe I want to learn about how to write a better report, or specialize in a particular part of a cloud database engine, and find the things that are interesting to you. Because I think that's pretty much probably what all of us did in our careers. Is, oh, that's interesting, let's look at that. Oh, that's kind of interesting, let's look at that. Oh, I need to do this 100 times now. How am I going to do that? Oh, this is where PowerShell comes in, right? And so that's the path I think we've all taken. And so just figure out what
I'd
you like.
argue with you, but being a DBA who specializes in containers, I really can't say anything.
You're still fighting with Python version 2, whatever.
Oh God, so. No, don't I have flashbacks? It's always 2.7. It's always 2.7. Anyway,
muttering to yourself in the corner.
I would say
I do agree with you. I would say if someone's going for like a DBA job, though, I would be asking questions about backups. Well, I don't really want to turn this into like what would the interview be like type.
Right.
Yeah. But no, getting started out, absolutely find the area that you're interested in. Yeah, if you're interested in, say, because it's so wide now. If you're into what's the word? I'm trying to think. Help me here. All I've got in my head is data sciencey type stuff. Then I know there's a better way of describing that. Then you can get into the whole machine learning side, writing like Python scripts in SQL Server and things like that. You can get into, as we said, the database developer side, the systems administration side of being a DBA. You can, if it's in the cloud, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can play with in the cloud for SQL Server. It's absolutely awesome. But
learn automation. Don't learn the UI. Write the code.
And then you've got PowerShell, ARM, whatever Bicep seems to be, which seems to be automation for ARM, which is already automation, but whatever. Okay. And then you've got Azure DevOps up there. You've got there's a whole bunch of GitHub Actions. There's if you really are insane, you can go and look at Jenkins. Whew.
You did a bunch of work with Jenkins, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
And you predicated that whole statement with, if you're insane.
Yeah, no, it's served us well. Might be outgrowing it now, but it's done its job.
Works. It works, kind of, when it wants to.
I like the idea of focusing on the basics first. I could only imagine how overwhelming it would be to get into the data community at this point with all of the technologies that are out.
Well, that's the thing with that. There was like, who runs that great conference, which is there's a
AKB.
No, that is a great conference, but there's
Data Platform Discovery Day.
Data Platform Discovery Day. That's it, where it's specifically for level 300 and introductory
level
sessions.
100.
Level 100 even. My bad.
So Matt Gordon and then Stuart are the two that folks.
That's it. That's it. So there's stuff out there, like, and what I think we're really blessed in the SQL world as well. It's like if you Google an issue, you'll have a ton of blog posts coming out for you. If you Google like backup and recovery, there'll be a whole bunch of stuff just pops out of Google for you. And I think we've all become too used to that because Anthony, and you will know both this, Mark, but when I was working with Kubernetes custom, you run into an issue with Kubernetes and you Google a problem. We've ended up looking at the source code.
Yeah.
Right, like,
Yeah.
because there aren't
that or the GitHub issues, right?
Oh, yeah. Because it's a newer technology, just hasn't had the time for all the community to build around it and release all these things. So, no, there's an absolute ton of stuff out there for anyone wanting to get started. I think you could argue maybe that there's a little bit too much, but that's a nice problem to have, I'd say.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, Mark. You're supposed to be doing a good job there, Mark.
I know.
Mark,
Did he freeze?
Mark, you're supposed to be the host.
I think he froze. He might have
I'm
froze.
hosting,
Did he freeze?
I'm hosting. No, I'm just trying to think of where to go next here.
Well, I think you have a question on the list that looks pretty interesting. So how do you learn? Right? I think that's a good one.
Yeah, no, that is a good
So-
question. How do you learn? Because I feel like that has changed a lot. I don't know if I haven't decided if it's changed for the better or not.
Mhm.
I feel like more and more and this sounds so horrible because we are contributing to this, but I find more and more that there is a lot of content on YouTube
Yeah.
and a lot of like text-based resources that I might have gone to in the past don't exist anymore or are poorly maintained. So I do tend to learn a lot more via YouTube videos to the point where I don't even search anywhere else initially. Like if I want to learn something, like recently I've started learning something about Ansible. And I found that my pattern that I've gotten into now is that I will hop on YouTube, find that 15-minute introductory video that exists for, every technology ever built by man. And then from there, I'll figure out what I want to dive a little deeper into, and I'll start looking for some sort of documentation or something on it. But I do more and more find myself starting with those short kind of intro videos, just so I kind of understand how the terminology fits together and stuff, and gives me a better idea what I need to actually look for. I don't know what your experiences have been.
No, I'm pretty much the same. I struggle with sitting down and watching like a whole course series that's over an hour long is just not going to work for me. And that's not a dig at you, Anthony, in any way, shape, or form. It's just I really find it difficult to just sit there and watch. What I'll tend to do is
I'm not
He
the only
forgets-
person on this. I'm not the only person on this call that has produced the Pluralsight course. Just
yes,
saying.
right, yeah, but I can't.
He's forgotten about it, I guess.
He
I don't know.
blocked it out. He's like, I
blocked
don't
it
know.
out.
I was
It was so
Disneyland. For
traumatic.
that I was at Disneyland for that entire month. But I find it difficult. I mean, I will like what I tend to do with stuff like that is I'll skip through and watch I'll watch the demos, and then because I like to like go hands-on, dive in deep and play around, and that's how I learn. I learn by doing, and then I'll go and read blog posts that explain exactly what I've just set up and how badly I've just broken that system.
Yeah. I think I use blog posts for like problem solution, much like you guys described, right? Somebody's going to have encountered it and they're going to have blogged it. But I think if I'm trying to build like a fundamental layer in like new tech, I'm going to get a book. I'm going to watch a course. I have lots of books, right? And so that's just kind of how I've always learned. And then lately it's shifted to video because it's just higher bandwidth, like when it comes to consuming it. Because I read really slow. Let's be serious.
Well, it depends on the
You've
topic.
got like 50
too.
copies of the Hungry Caterpillar behind you. I mean, come on.
They've got different bindings on them, though. So you can't
That's actually down. I actually do have that down.
But no, to that point, Anthony, I was
That's
trying to learn more about.
Eric Carley, right?
I was trying to learn more about Kerberos auth, and that's a topic right there. Like it's pretty dry.
It's a dark art.
It's a dark. But I tried reading a few blog posts and it just wasn't clicking. But I watched a couple shorter videos on it and it helped a lot. So yeah, more and more I'm getting a lot of my stuff from video. But I do agree with Andrew that I do still find it hard to sit down and watch really lengthy courses. But half hour, 45 minutes is my kind of sweet spot as far as what I can easily consume.
A very good method that we haven't mentioned that we've all three of us have done with each other is bounce problems and ideas off each other.
Oh yeah.
So you have like have a network of people that you can go and talk to. Like, actually, do you remember we were looking at was it the IP tables configs on those Kubernetes nodes and just trying to work
Oh
out
yeah.
exactly what on earth was going on there? And it took us, I don't know, an hour and a bit, and then just
Yeah.
diving through and working it out together. So if you've got like a good network of people that you can rely on and talk to as well, really helps, instead of just because they can't having someone else to bounce ideas off and talk to about a problem really does work, because otherwise you can just end up going down an absolute rabbit hole of. I think me and you, Mark, have done that in work as well, where I've been banging on about something else and you've gone, have you tried this? And it's like, no.
Yeah, even just sometimes just walking and like saying, because we're all, most of us are stuck at home still, and I'll just go and I'll talk to my wife and be like, hey, blah 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 blah, this technical thing, just getting it out loud is always like a good way to attack maybe a harder problem. So, but I love you guys. Thank you for your support.
I see that DAM come up from either of you two, and it's just like, oh no, not again.
All is not merry in the
we
AKB
may have
land.
to end this on a positive note. We're a little crunched for time for this episode. It's been a good talk. I don't know if we said anything intelligent or not, but I'll find out while I'm editing it. We'll see.
So we get back tomorrow to re-record this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the chat, gentlemen. It's been fun. We're going to try to do more of these for our listeners here. We're going to try to do more of these. We do love having guests on, but it can be difficult to book guests, especially it was difficult to book this just with us.
Yeah, it really was.
So we are going to we're going to mix it up a little bit. Have a couple episodes with us, discussing something and having guests on when it makes sense. So I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we will see you all next time.
Bye now.